Everyone, is Professor Inong095 back here with Odium tech profile. Okay, this time around is a more updated version. Of course, DZ-BT07 came out not too long ago, so we would like to take this opportunity to dive into this new and updated tech profile and see what I have changed from the last time, and like what is very different from the last time we did a deck profile based on Odium like a few months ago. So of course, before we jump straight into the deck profile, here is the word from the sponsor. This video is sponsored by MyMetalCards at Etsy.com, which they are a shop that specializes in creating, hence the name, metal cards, right? So they have plenty of variety of designs, cool, awesome designs that you can choose from, ranging not only from Cards like Vanguard, but also from other games such as MTG, Flesh and Blood, and also Gundam, if I'm not mistaken at this point. So plenty of choices. And for example, on my end, I have the Gear Chronicle clan emblem right here, and I also have the black and white Chronojet energy counter, which is metallic, which is hard, and also quite sharp as well. So which is cool. And the best part about it is that it's not only limited to only like this kind of cards, but they also have like crests, power counters, energy generators, and so forth, right? So plenty of things that you can choose from. There's even transparent acrylic ones if you wanted to, and also you can use my promo code at checkout by using the promo code ENOCHSAYS, so ENOCHSAYS. You will get $5 off on your first purchase. And also just to keep in mind that these metal cards are not official, but they are great for casual use. You can do it as some sort of like a deck divider, or you can use it for personal collection as well. That would be nice in this way. So that's about it. Use my promo code and check out the store as well. That is MyMetalCards at Etsy.com. Link in the description. And that's about it. We move on to the video. Alright, on the grand scheme of things, let's talk about Odium, Liael Odium in general. So, okay, so where do I begin actually? Odium so far is, in my personal opinion, still one of the most meta relevant decks actually, as a matter of fact. You've seen a lot of like recent tops all over the place, especially like when you look at the competitive scene in Japan. If you see recently in the World Finals WGPs, there's a few Odiums lying around. Actually, so technically speaking, the deck itself is kinda nice, kinda strong. It's like on the tier A levels of strong. Definitely not a tier B for me, as some people might have suggested, but and definitely not a tier S either. But even then, this deck, despite its issues, it has its issues of its own. But I feel like the deck is generally more consistent this time around. It kind of makes your deck like less freaky than usual on my end after the new wave of support, and it kind of like gives a lot of like what to call that, a lot of different potentials on how you want to go around like building your deck, especially with the alternatives that I might suggest in the end. Take it what you will from there and just made it into something on your own that you're very comfortable with. So on my end, I felt like this is one of the few decks, this is one of the few, I would say like this is the list that I'm much more happy and comfortable with. So probably I would like take this time to share it with you. So yeah, we'll jump straight into the deck profile, but before that, if you do like this video about like what I'm doing here in this channel, please don't forget to hit like and subscribe and stay tuned for more. With that, we jump straight into the main deck. Alright, so if you're talking about the deck, of course you're going to have to talk about like the right line, which is, of course, this is just going to be the new Odium right line. You cannot play any other right line, unlike some certain decks, of course. So for starters, I just play Chronodron. You can use Gear Quetzal, it doesn't matter. I just play the Gear Zero. Chronodron for the Gear Zero, you can use anything. It's because I like the Gear Chronicle aesthetic. So and it's also I'm playing this on the Chronojet, what do you call that? Top loader. So I can bamboozle people and say that like, oh, are you playing Chrono Jet? Actually, no, actually, I'm actually playing Odium. But okay, that aside, banters aside, jokes aside, the starter doesn't really matter as long as you have the Grey Zero, which of course, if you went second, you get to draw one. That's pretty self-evident, self-explanatory. I don't need to go on that. The Grade 1 and the Grade 2 is also have to be the most important part of the deck, is because this Grade 1 allows you to get the Destined Timepiece, which is of course the one of the win cons for you to get into the 5 regress gauge in order for you to get an extra turn. So of course you have to write this one, Steam Maiden Tiglat, and then you have to get this Destined Timepiece. And also this Colossus is kind of like very helpful to accelerate your gauge, where you can choose one card from your hand into the gauge zone and allows you to draw 2 cards, right? So kind of nice on that end. So this is the right line that you must play, nothing else, right? And of course, not to mention that of course this will be the ace of your vanguard is Liael Odium. So what does Liael Odium does? If for those of you who are not very familiar at this point, I have to explain it to you. So the first skill is that continuous vanguard circle during this turn. For every distorted Bane in your regress gauge zone, all of your front row units plus 5k, front row rear guards plus 5k, not units plus 5k, sorry. When this unit attacks you, zone plus 1, choose either a card from your hand or from your rear guard circle, you put it in the regress gauge. And if you do, during this turn, this unit gets a triple drive and of course the divine skill itself. What she does is that at the end of the battle that she attacks, if you have 5 or more cards in the regress gauge, you discard 2 cards from your hand and you get an additional turn, and during that additional turn, it gets drive -1 and you will not perform a right phase or main phase, right? So it kind of have to balance this out for the energy charging and like not calling new cards on the board. So of course this is where Liael Odium is very scary on this end, because the whole triple drive plus an extra turn is already very pressuring, very scary enough if you fight against it. And of course, if you're the one piloting it, you feel very fun about it because you can get to like get an additional extra turn. But of course, this is the main vanguard. This is what she does. And of course, this is just for the right deck. Moving on to the main deck in itself. So I think this is the next thing that you can all agree on and you can all expect is 3 copies of the Persona right copies, no more, no less. Without Persona, this deck is a bit doo-doo when it comes to power, so you have to, as much as possible, as often as you can, Persona right? Because without the Persona right, the numbers is technically very bad. So 3 copies of Persona right, and of course for the next grade 3 I play 4 Anachronous Dragon. What Anachronous Dragon does is basically technically something like of a field remover and able to call himself on the regress gauge during the battle, at the beginning of your battle phase, right? So for full clarity of explanation, what he does is that auto in the gauge zone at the beginning of your battle phase. If this card is in the gauge regress gauge zone, you counter +1, you choose one card from your drop zone, put it in the gauge, and then you can call this card to the rearguard circle. And then the second skill is that on rearguard circle, when this unit attacks vanguard, if you have a grade 3 greater Liael vanguard during this battle, you get 5k, and if you have trauma regress gauge, you energy blast 2. You energy blast 2 and choose one of your opponent's rearguard and retire it. So kind of nice. I'll play like a 4 off. This because like you need to find consistency in like drawing into cards that you can set into regress gauge, rather than like setting down for your less desirable cards. Could be your triggers, could be your great ones, or could be anything. So as long as you have Anachronous in your early stages of your mulligan in your hand, then you can just set it into your hand and you're able to draw 2, and that you can call it out even during a grade 2 turn. Because the best part about this card of Anachronous going like on a grade 2 turn is that as long as he's in regress gauge, he can call himself already into the rearguard circle, thereby he'll be swinging for 13k as well. And not to mention that like you can set something to the regress gauge, which means that you can set like it could be another copy of the Anachronous Dragon, it could be a copy of the grade 2 Asunder Colossus, which you're gonna get straight into, or we can just set into a distorted Bane, thereby giving a grade 2 vanguard plus 10k power and just draw one, right? So it's kind of nice. There's a lot of like combo things that you can do with this. So definitely 4 copies of Anachronous Dragon, nothing else. The next card I'll be playing is of course excuse me, 4 copies of Distorted Bane. I think this is going to be undebatable. This is like not debatable. You have to play 4 copies. What it does is that when you can only play this card if you're Liael Vanguard, which is obvious, and you may soul charge 1. and you put this card into your regress gauge. And then the second skill is that when this card is put into the gauge, regress gauge, you draw one, choose from your vanguards plus 10k, right? So technically making your vanguard a 23, making Liael 23k beater, or making your grade 2 on the early stage or early phases of the game to be a 20k attacker, which is kind of nice. And you get to draw one as well, so this is kind of like a draw engine as well, so it's good. So yeah, definitely a 4 copies, and because since Odium has needs to require to have like 4 like plus 5k to your front row rear guards for each distorted Bane. If you have 4 of them in your regress gauge, that will be your front row rear guards having a 20k, which is a huge buff. So even without a persona right power, your power is already like very, I would say like very reaching magic numbers, and like kind of like high enough. So even then, an Anachronous Dragon can be able to swing you for like a 38k, which is a magic number, 33k, 38k, which is kind of nice. So definitely play 4 distorted Banes, and this is the one of the ways that if you don't set your distorted Bane to set in your regress gauge, you won't be able to accelerate your divine turn as fast. So you need to have on your next few turns that you're playing from grade 3 onwards, is that you have to play at least 1 distorted Bane in order for you to accelerate into your divine as fast as possible, right? So this is the one of the most important cards for you to set into your regress gauge, right? Moving on, I think that's all the grade 3s for the time being. Yeah, we can move on to the grade 2s as well, which is we're talking about instant Asunder Colossus. Okay, this is the new triple rare support in Odium grade 2, which of course the first skill is the same thing as Anachronous, but it's the same thing what it does as Anachronous. But the second skill is different, is that continuous rearguard circle. If you have a grade 3 or greater Liael Vanguard, this unit gets the effect that when this unit attacks a Vanguard, you can Energy Blast 2 to draw 1 and plus 5k, right? So not only that he is a 15k beat stick on a grade 3, that is also technically speaking a grade 2 version of Anachronous Dragon, which also you can able to call it out during your grade 2 turn if this card is in regress gauge, and also some sort of like a draw engine as well, so you can able to draw 1, you can just Soul Blast to draw 1, but bear in mind that since like Odium Soul Blasts a lot, like technically like every turn you have to use a Soul Blast 1, so unless you're playing Furia's early game, or if you have something to shove into your Soul early game, then Soul Blast will not be an issue, and drawing is definitely not going to be an issue for you if you have the sufficient soul for it. So I say like I'll play 4 copies for the sake of consistency, and for you know setting up your regress gauge as fast as possible, and having, you know, like I mentioned earlier, more desirable cards to set into your gauge rather than setting for like say your triggers or your grade 1s, right? The next grade 2 I'll be playing is actually like the new Rainbow Cyclist, which is Ravos. Okay, so I play 2 copies. So what Ravos does is that when this unit is discarded from your hand to write out from your right deck, or call to a rearguard circle from your hand other than from a unit card's ability, you can either reveal right deck persona icon in your right deck, or if you have a Vanguard with a Persona right icon, you can Soul Blast 1 and you get a Persona ticket and add it to your hand. And the second skill is that when this unit attacks a grade 3 or greater Vanguard during this battle, plus 5k. So it's a 15k big stick as well. And that also allows you to gain the Persona ticket, which we're gonna get straight into, and add it to your hand, thereby increasing your levels of defenses. So you can either discard it or you can just call it out, so I think it will be fine. What Persona ticket for some probably like returning players or some new players who is very clueless, definitely is something like a quick shield. It's a blitz order per se, which the skill is that if you play this order, choose one of your orders that is being choose one of your units that is being attacked plus 10k. During this turn, you can play up to 2 blitz orders, and after that, if your opponent has a crest other than Energy Generator, it gets another additional 5k. And the second skill is that it continues in the hand during your turn. When this card will be chosen to be discarded to riding up from the right deck, or chosen by your own card effect, this card cannot be discarded nor can be chosen, right? So technically speaking, if you want to say like I want to use a grade 1 order searcher to discard this card, you cannot do that. The only time that you're able to discard this card without like using its skill is that if you're using a PG, because that is not during your turn, because you can just basically just discard this order and it's not being chosen by it's chosen by your card effect not during your turn. So just to clarify some things. And also the 10k shield is kind of like nice as well, because In some games, like you don't want to really overguard, and some cases that you really need a 10k shield. And also the bonus about like having the 5k was that like if you're fighting decks that have like crest, other crests such as like excuse me, strike decks in general, Love and Berry, Mushi King, or something along those lines, right? Okay, so this is definitely a nice addition to the deck as well. So of course this has to be generated outside of the deck, so this card is not in your main deck per se, right? So just to have to clarify on that end. So yeah, I played 2 copies of Red Walls. I think 3 is a little bit too much, and also like you need the soul sometimes, so I played 2 copies is enough lah. So you can see like my build is a little bit on a very defensive end, so which is, you were not wrong if you were to say that. But also like I'm just trying to look for a balance between like both offense and defense, right? So then again, the next grade 2 I'm playing is actually Protection Twin Cast. So this is the Regalis piece, which means it's a one-off. So this is the one-off Regalis piece that I'll be playing. Considering how that you have Distorted Banes as your normal order, you would not be playing any other normal orders other than Distorted Bane. So your best option at this point is to have, say that you have to play a Blitz order, which also can be very beneficial on your end. And also since you're playing a one-off copy, this is the best card, this is the most perfect card to slit in, because the first skill allows you to choose one of your units that is being attacked and plus 10k until the end of the battle. Otherwise, the second skill is that like you can resolve a Regalis piece ability even though you have if you haven't resolved it yet. So it's the drop zone. When you choose one of your units that is being attacked, you can just remove itself from the drop zone and choose one of your units. Choose one of your units that is being attacked for every of the grade. You get plus 5k power, right? Essentially, it's like saying that if your vanguard is 13k, you will be getting a 28k during that battle, which is kind of nice. So but you have to remove it afterwards, which is kind of fair. So yeah, definitely a one piece when it comes to the Regalis piece in itself. Now moving on to the grade 1s, actually we have 4 Ares Wrestler. Now 4 Ares Wrestler is definitely one of the most important key pieces, because in cases where you are not able to fetch back your if you don't have Distorted Banes in your hand, this is one of the emergency cards that you can play in order for you to get your Distorted Banes to play it, and then you set in the regress gauge, right? So you do not want to break on this end. So if you can't able to have Distorted Banes, this is the next best thing that you in your hand early game. This will be the next best thing that you can have, because the skill is that when this unit is placed on rear guard circle from your hand, if you did not play an order card during this turn, emphasis on that, which means that you cannot play any other order cards like prior by calling it. You have to make sure that you do not play any order cards. The cost is that you discard 1 card from your hand and then search your deck for up to 1 normal order without a Regalis piece, goes to the drop zone, and the order card gets that when you were to play this order card, it goes to the bottom of the deck instead of leaving it at the drop, right? So if you were to search this out, search Distorted Bane out for this skill, and if you play Distorted Bane, then Distorted Bane automatically goes to the regress gauge, and you get to able to stay there without going back to the bottom of the deck, which means you get to draw 1 and give your unit, give your vanguard plus 10k, right? So it's kind of nice as well. And also it is kind of like I would say like a very emergency fall off. I don't want to say emergency fall off. It's something like one of the key staples that if you are not able to find your orders, then this is a very good card to have as well. And you know, the funniest part is that like during the turn that you are able to divine, if you are able to do a little bit of like setup for divine, you can just technically just call this card and just discard a Distorted Bane, and then you can just search your deck for another Distorted Bane, just put it in the drop, and then just set it, and then play the Distorted Bane that you play. And then for the next divine turn, if you have any Anachronus or the Colossus and you have another Distorted Bane in your drop zone, you can swap it out. Then you can give your put it in a regress gauge. Then you can give your vanguard another additional 10k, even though if you don't persona, right? So because if you do it that way, even without a persona, right, you will still your vanguard will still be sitting at 23k, which is kind of nice, right? This is because that's a persona right power. So that's where like it can come in handy in those kind of situations, right? So definitely a 4 off, definitely not a 3 off. So yeah, kind of nice. Of course, this is also very self-evident and self-explanatory. This will be like 3 PGs and 1 Elementary Sanctitude. So technically 4 Sentinels, no more, no less. I think Elementary Meteor 1 will always be the best friend. You don't play Elementaria 2 unless, of course, you're fighting decks like Strike decks or Love and Berry, something along those lines, right? The next card I'm be playing is technically Steam Maiden Zimry. So Zimry is also the new addition to this new set as well. So she's a rare card, but also like she's also the 30k, like the 50k booster for Odium. What she does is that continuous rare card circle during this battle when this unit boosted. If you have a grade 3 or greater Liael vanguard, this unit plus 5k, and auto rare card skill, this unit boosts a grade 3 greater Liael vanguard during this battle plus 2k, and at the end of the battle you can play the cost to retire itself either to counter charge 1 or to energy charge 3. So kind of nice. Not only that, she's a 13k on 30k booster on the sides and a 15k booster on the vanguard on the middle column. But also it gives you the option to whether or not you want to energy charge or you want to counter charge. So kind of nice. So if your Odium really uses a lot of like CB with a heavy usage, this is the best card for you to kind of like replenish your resources to like counter charge, and able for you to like call out your Anachronus or your Colossus, or you can do something else. So at the same time, like the energy blast is also kind of nice, because if you're playing Tishkal or you're playing if you're playing Anachronus Dragon, you can use those energy to try to like replenish those energy to retire your board, and also like get to use Tishkal's skill to energy blast 3 and draw 1. I would say like 3 copies is definitely enough. I wouldn't play 4 because like 4 copies is just a tad bit too much. It's a bit jank. So the ratios is a little bit imbalanced. Now speaking about Anachronus, I have to rewind a little bit. Okay. Anachronus, with the amount of like energy blasting you use in this deck is kind of like have to be good, have to be nice as well. Sometimes you will find yourself in situations where your opponent doesn't have a rear guard, so having an Anachronus on the board to say that to retire your field doesn't make sense. So you will find yourself to say that like you want to energy blast 7 and draw 1, and in kind of like certain instances where like the booster allows you to energy charge 3, you can use it later on for future Anachronus usage, to clear a board, or just use it for Tishka, right? But also like Anachronus is kind of nice because field wipe or like board like retiring or board wipe mechanic engine so far in this meta is kind of good as well. I will find myself very often to use Anachronus skill to just like retire something on the board, especially the intercepts, so that like it kind of decreases their chances for them to like able to have an extra 5k shield, and also like get to retire some of their important key cards on the board, which might be very annoying. So being someone who is on the receiving end of like a mirror match with like Odium and whatnot, so the 5k intercepts and getting retired, it makes a lot of difference, right? So that's why Anachronus is also kind of good on this end, just to retire like the good cards on the board. And especially if you're playing against hostage decks where they have PG on the board, then you can use Anachronus Dragon to just retire it, right? So that's about it on the end. Now moving on to the next great one, actually, is basically you have the Furia. I have played 3 copies of Furia. So what Furia does is basically the Dark Stage strategy, where like with this unit boost, if your opponent has one or less rear guard, or if you play an order card during this turn, which you always do with distorted Bane, during this battle, this unit plus 5k, then at the end of the battle, move this card into your soul and you get to draw 1, right? So this is kind of like your draw engine, and also like a 13k booster and also like you get to fill your soul for you to like soul blast with Odium, or you can use it for say like energy blast 2 with Asunder, soul blast 2 with the Colossus, and able for you to draw 1, which is nice. And for this end, I have to make sure that you have to understand that Furia is only good on the early stages of the game, because in the very late stages of the game you do not really want to draw as much already, because you're probably on the verge of tacking out, and you don't really have much orders to play if in the kind of like situations where you already have 4 distorted Banes on the field in the regress gauge, so there's like technically there's not much point for you to play her in the late game. But early game she is kind of like strong because like she is a 13k booster, which makes your numbers very magic in certain situations. Now 21k, 23k, and also like mostly it also allows you to draw one, which means that you're able to draw into pieces. So it is kind of like nice to have Furia in the early game but not in the late game. So I just have to put it that way. There's like certain pros and cons if you have to play Furia, but at the end of the day I would say like Furia is definitely a 3 off. I would say I won't play 4 off because I think like 4 off is a tad bit too much, right? Because you don't want to draw too much, and in the late game it's just basically a potentially 8k vanilla on a like do, right? That's about it. The next great one I'll be playing is actually Daifu Door Patience. Okay, so this is the one of the few cards in the meta and the list so far that is like very different than what most people play. Most lists I see don't play Patience, some lists I does, some lists do. But what she does essentially is that when this card is placed on Rearguard Circle, if you have a grade 3 or grade 3 greater Liael Vanguard, you can Energy Blast 2 and choose one face up order card in the damage zone or in the drop zone that is not a Regalis piece and add it to your hand. If you put it from the damage zone, if you get it from the damage zone, you have to put the top card of your damage of your deck and put it into the damage. And if you put it from the drop, and if you take it from the drop zone, then nothing happens, right? So just to explain it that way. And then the second skill continues. Rearguard Circle during this turn, if you have 2 or more regress gauge, this unit plus 5k power, right? So essentially, Patience is a 13k booster, a 13k attacker, which is good, which is great. But not to mention that, like in very dire situations where if your distorted base is in your damage zone and you are not able to kill it out, this is where that Patience comes in. You can fetch up your distorted Banes, and then you can able to put it in the. You can play it later, or you can just use it to discard with something else. I don't know, and then you can just use it to accelerate your front row rearguard power by playing the distorted Bane as fast as possible, because there's no worse feeling than having your say like your distorted Banes to go to your damage and not seeing it for the next few turns that you're gonna get, or else it's gonna be like too late, it's gonna be too slow for you to get it. So Patience is just one of those few cards that can be coming in very handy when you need it. I can personally watch for myself that like in kinds of those situations where distorted Bane enters my damage zone, Patience was there to help me to fetch that order zone back to my hand so that I can play distorted Bane and accelerate the regress gauge. So of course this is kind of nice, but I say like 2 copies is definitely enough. I wouldn't play like 3 copies or 4 copies. I think that's a tad bit too much, but even then I think like 2 copies is a very healthy ratio, so that's about it on that end, right? Now moving on to the triggers, we have I played 8 crits and 8 crits, 4 draws, and of course 3 fronts and 1 Dark States OT. The reason why I play Dark States OT is very important because with a triple drive, if you manage to check into your OT, that will be a 33k with a distorted Bane power up, with a double crit and a triple drive, right? So you can assert a lot of pressure to like force your opponent to either hard guard this or force your opponent to get a PG, right? So this is like really funny because like there's like a lot of games I've drive checked into this Dark States OT, and in most cases, or more often than not, I win the game because the triple drive with a crit is very, very pressure and very scary. So without a PG in their hand, your opponent is basically as good as that if they don't have enough to guard for the vanguard as well as guarding for the sides as well, especially during a divine turn skill, divine skill turn. So you get my point, right? So yeah, I played 8 crits. I played like 4 effect crits just because in terms of emergency you might need the soul for it, to shove it into your soul and give unit plus 2k. So effect crits is definitely nice, and of course 4 normal heals. I will not play like I won't play effect heals. I would say like this would be definitely important enough, and also like 3 effect fronts, right? So yeah. Right, just for the 20k shoot. Don't play draws, please don't play draws. You already draw enough, you already triple drive a lot. So yeah, that's about it for the main deck, okay, and for the entirety of the deck in general. Let's move on to the alternatives. Now, certainly you might ask, they are better cards to play in the deck, right? So because I see your list and I kind of don't agree with it, is there any other alternatives? Plenty, actually. There's a lot of things that I can offer you to go for that, for alternatives wise. First off is, of course, you will still play back the Grade 2 Colossus, which is on the previous set in set 5, which on plays you counterblast one, you counterblast one and then you soul charge one and you get to draw one, which is your draw engine, and also 3 or more regress stage to get a boost. That is still relevant. It's still a 10k booster, it's still your draw engine, so I still see people still play that card. So by all means, that's one of the alternatives that you can slot in, but of course be wary about your CB usage, as well as your blind soul charging. Because like one of the few reasons why I just really don't like to play this card is just basically the blind soul charging, because the blind soul charging is already like scary enough. So even though it's good for the draw, but the CB usage in this deck, you have to control it sometimes. That's one card that you can use alternatively. Lemina will also be a very good option, where like if she is discarded from your right face, you can just soul blast one and put herself at the bottom of the deck and get to draw one, which is kind of nice because like I mentioned earlier, Odium has a tendency to deck out. So on this particular end, sometimes you have to be very careful about you have to really kind of make sure that you don't deck out as fast. So that's why Lemina goes to the bottom of the deck and it allows you to draw ones. Technically, it's a net 0 in that sense, but it's not a net +1. It's not technically net 0, but you don't deck out as fast. But also Lemina's second skill is kind of nice, is because like she's able to call something from the soul. If you Persona Rogue during this turn, when she is placed on rearguard circle from the hand, mind you, I just have to make this very important distinction. If you Persona Rogue, you can counterblast one, you can choose one card from your soul and call it to rearguard circle, and then you soul charge one. You may soul charge one, okay? So this is kind of like nice in sense that if you soul charge your Furious, you can technically just call your Furious out, or if you manage to soul charge anything important like Anachronos or Patience or something like that, it could be nice as well to like call out your certain key cards in the soul, which will be very useful for you. So like Lemina is basically nice on this particular end, right? So it's not that bad actually. So you can technically play Lemina. You can also play Tishkal. Actually, Tishkal is the energy, the EB cycler, where if you writing from the right deck, when discarded from your hand, to write out from the right deck, you can either counterblast one or energy blast 3 to draw one. And of course, the second skill is that if you place on rearguard, if you Persona Rogue during this turn, you can either CB1 or EB3 to +5k, and then you soul charge one, and then gets boost until the end of the turn. So kind of like very nice in the same situation where you get the boost effect and the draw one like Lemina does. But the fact is that I don't really like to play Tishkal on the second part of the skill. Is that you can definitely call it out on your first few turns that you can able to get boost, but it would be very awkward that she will not be able to boost if she's on the field during your divine turn, because after that you will never able to boost again. So definitely like calling out her on the Persona turn is like very iffy. So mostly it's just because like you need the energy blast 3 to usually you just use the first skill to just like discarding for riding in order for you to draw one. But of course, this is just my personal opinion. I felt like you can always play something else, but I felt like the energy blast 3 can be used for like say for Patience and for Anachronos, which is not that bad per se. In general, it's not too bad of a situation. So that would be a very nice other alternative for you, the option to play with. Otherwise, you can always opt for Fort and Revoltis. This is also one of the more famous cards that I've seen people play in their Odium decks. When this unit is placed on rearguard circle, you can you soul charge one, and then you can counterblast one and perform one of the following abilities to either retire one of your grade 2 opponent's grade 2 or greater rearguards, or you can choose one grade 2 or less cards from your soul, unique cards from your soul, and call it the rearguard circle, which is nice. So not only this is 15k, like it kind of like give you an early game grade 2 rushing for 15k bit stick to reach magic numbers and whatnot, but it also allows you to call, like, same thing as Lamina, you can always call out your important key pieces like Furias or like your Patience or something, or like your Anachronus or any other Colossus if you happens to soul charge them by any chance, right? So kind of like nice in this kind of like certain situations. Actually, you cannot even call Anachronus because like it says like grade 2 or less. Grade 2 or less cards, right? If I'm not mistaken. Please correct me on that. I'm pretty sure you can call grade 2 or less cards from your soul. This is all the one ways for you to technically fill your board as well, so you don't have to really commit so much from your hand when calling. This is one of the best positive parts about Fort and Rivaltis in general, and also like to extend Lamina. But of course, as I said earlier, like blind soul charging is something which I'm not a huge fan of, and soul charging can be a little bit iffy in certain situations because, like I said, you don't want to deck out as fast, and you would probably don't want to soul charge into something like your triggers and whatnot. But the best part, even then, even if you soul charge into something which is like less desirable, you can always use the Asunder Colossus to just Soul Blast 2 it out and just able for you to draw one. Otherwise, you can reserve the soul for you to consistently do a triple drive, which is kind of nice as well. So this is the alternatives that I can offer to you in my own personal perspective after like playtesting with some of the certain decks and seeing other people how they build their decks. So that's about it. But of course, I will end the video almost right here, right now. Then again, if you have any other comments, if you have any other perspective or opinions, like how do you run Odium, in general, I would love to hear your opinions. Please feel free to comment down in the comment section down below, and I'll see you guys on the next video. This has been Professor Inel 095 signing out. Whee!